So, Grandpa, would you consider yourself a big Batman fan? Hmm. Oh, really? What part about the character got you interested in the mythology? Was it the fact that he's a mortal man who trained his mind and body to work at superhuman levels? Hmm. Oh, how about the fact that he has a really cool, dark aesthetic and character design that's remained relatively unchanged since the 1940s? Mm. Oh, is it the Rogues Gallery? Mm. The animated series? Mm. Scott Snyder? Mm. Well, I give up. Why do you like Batman? Mm. So Batman has been around for a long time. Like, a really long time. So long, in fact, that if I had $1 for every Golden Age comic book character that Bruce Wayne outlived, I'd be as rich as, well, Batman. So when the studio execs at Warner Brothers were considering revamping the Batman franchise with a new set of movies in the early 2000s, they had a Batplane-sized hurdle to overcome. Really? Is that what we're going with? Comedy gold, everybody. How do you take a 60-plus-year-old character and make him fresh and new when he's already been reinvented countless times for multiple decades, especially considering that the Schumacher films were still seared into the public consciousness with red-hot bat nipples? The answer? Big Daddy Christopher Nolan. Mm-hmm. Actually, contrary to popular belief, Christopher Nolan wasn't a comic book superfan with encyclopedic knowledge of the Batman universe. He actually created the pitch with the help of David Goyer, who was a superfan and an actual comic book writer. I hope this goes to show that the importance of making a quality adaptation isn't necessarily being an expert of the source material, but rather being willing to delegate to people who are. Anyway, Christopher Nolan was still a relatively unknown director at this time, with only one major studio release under his belt. But that studio also just so happened to be Warner Brothers. So, nepotism for the win. Nolan's directorial films prior to Batman had all been in the noir category. As far as I can tell, noir doesn't really have a hard and fast definition, but more often than not, it involves a world-weary protagonist who is usually, but not always, a detective who gets pulled into a world of crime and slowly has his life start to spiral out of control as he gets deeper and deeper into trouble. Also, sometimes there's a sexy lady who is secretly evil, but we have to wait until Inception to see Nolan tackle that. Going in the noir direction for Batman was an inspired choice because noir came into prominence in the 1940s when Batman was first introduced. I guess you could argue that Keaton's Batman had a noir aesthetic as well, but if you ask me, he was a little too stoic to be a noir protagonist. Nolan's Batman is way more impacted by the psychological effect that crime can have on a person. He just can't get away from the shadow of his parents' murder that Gotham is casting over his life. At one point, he literally just decides to say fuck it and become a criminal. To me, that's the secret sauce that led to the success of Batman Begins. Bruce didn't become Batman for completely altruistic reasons. At first, he just wants to figure himself out and conquer his own personal demons, which is pretty much the main message of the film.
Hey everybody, it's your old pal Mr. Like. Why don't you do me a favor and press that little like button on the corner of your screen right there? Hey, there's no need for that kind of language. I'm just doing my job. I'm a giant thumbs up for Christ's sakes. Alright, back to the show.
Of course, we can't talk about the Nolan films without getting into the stellar production design. This is thanks in no small part to Nathan Crowley, who was tasked with giving everything in the world a grounded, high-tech feel. The origin of Bruce's high-tech gadgetry was mostly hand-waved away with the explanation that the American military was just showering Wayne Enterprises with military contracts, which, honestly, sounds pretty believable. The real-life Lockheed Martin probably has tech that even Batman would find hard to believe. The most iconic thing to come out of the movie, in my opinion, has to be the Tumbler. Every good comic book adaptation has something that becomes a staple for the franchise going forward. For Richard Donner's Superman, it was the crystals in the Fortress of Solitude. For Raimi's Spider-Man, it was Doc Ock, being a more sympathetic character. For Nolan's Batman, it was definitely the Tumbler, which made its way into several Batman comics, as well as being pretty much ripped off by Rocksteady in Arkham Knight and Zack Snyder in Batman v Superman. Thank God, Matt Reeves is finally doing something more original for the Batman. Now that I'm done thoroughly filleting Nolan's abilities as a director, it's time to get into the aspects of the movie that I didn't like. Now don't get me wrong, Liam Neeson is frickin' legendary as the character, and no amount of weird racism will get me to deny that fact.
Black bastard.
However, out of all the Nolan Bat films, this movie's evil villain scheme is just downright ridiculous. It makes even less sense than Bane's plan to defraud the stock market. I mean, the government is already doing that. So, in the movie, the League of Shadows steals this device from Wayne Enterprises that uses radiation to vaporize water. Cool. Good so far. They then pollute the city water supply with a hallucinogen with no ill effects after you drink it. Okay. Then they use the device to activate the hallucinogen, which will make everybody freak out and kill each other, after which they will rebuild Gotham as a new crime-free utopia. Alright, I don't get this plan at all. So you have unrestricted access to the water supply for weeks, and your master plan is to give everyone a bad trip. If you really wanted to cause a panic, why didn't you just poison the water supply with, I don't know, actual poison? We've seen what happens to society when natural resources go from plentiful to limited. You don't need a convoluted drug or an expensive doomsday weapon. Hell, the major thesis of both subsequent Batman films is that it doesn't take much for people in a civilization to turn on each other. Also, what was your plan to make Gotham great again once everyone in the city is either dead or paralyzed with fear? Terrorist attacks don't exactly have a track record of boosting local economies. There goes the Gotham tourism industry. So, in conclusion, I hope this video essay is a worthy addition to the many, many YouTube videos analyzing Nolan's filmography. Jesus, people are going to be doing this forever, aren't they?
You and I are destined to do this forever.
Anyway, at the end of every episode, Grandpa and I like to give a member of the audience a prize from our mega prize wheel of prizes. Let's give it a spin, shall we? Ooh, a mystery prize. Throat cancer.
Someone like you. I'll look into it. Drop the gun.
The square of the hypotenuse of a right triangle.